Hey y'all, it's me, your favorite family law attorney, Bonnie Roden at Roden Law Group in Brevard County, Florida. This is video 3 in our series about equitable distribution, and we have about 5 segments of information to cover. So I'm here in my new office. We just moved, so I have nothing on the walls. Hopefully the echo's not too bad. I have no rugs, no pictures up. So let's talk about equitable distribution. So where we left off in video 2, we had not yet gotten to how does equitable distribution deal with the marital home. So if you own a home, for many divorcing couples, the home is more than just property. It's actually a source of an emotional connection. It also represents stability, and that's especially true for families with children. So in Florida, the court considers several factors when deciding what are we going to do with the house. If minor children are involved, the courts may choose to prioritize keeping the primary residential parent in the home. But the spouse keeping the house must be able to demonstrate that they can afford the mortgage, the taxes, and upkeep. So other options include one spouse buying out the other spouse's interest, selling the house and then dividing the proceeds, or granting one spouse or the other what's called exclusive use for a specific period of time. It's all about what's fair and what's feasible. And you may recall from previous videos that equitable does not mean equal, it means fair. So let's talk about the impact of alimony on property division. So alimony and ED go hand in hand. If one spouse needs support after the divorce, that may affect how the assets are divided. So I'll give you an example. Some spouses will negotiate a lump sum buyout with the property division instead of monthly alimony payments. So, of course, the longer the marriage, the greater the likelihood that alimony will have a big impact on the division of property. The goal of the court is to ensure both spouses can move forward financially, even if that means an unequal but fair distribution. So when you're working on your settlement agreements to avoid going to trial, it's important to keep in mind what hill do you want to stand on? What hill do you want to die on? And for some people, the house is a big issue. So those people might be willing to take less or more of other assets and debts in order for them to be able to hang on to the house. So, all right, let's talk a minute just real quick about prenuptial and postnuptial agreements. So prenups and postnups are not just for the stars. They're for everyday people, and these documents play a really powerful role in asset protection for couples today. These are agreements that will outline how property, other assets, and debts will be divided if the marriage ends. It doesn't mean one party gets everything and the other party gets nothing. A prenup is a contract. So it's an opportunity for the two parties to recognize that marriage is both a joining of hearts, but also a joining of your wallets. So there's business in marriage and there's the love part in marriage. You have to go to the courthouse usually to get a license to get married. So the marriage is based in both the love and the vows as well as in the law. So in general, Florida courts will enforce prenup or postnup agreements if they're entered into voluntarily and if there is full financial disclosure given. However, if there's fraud, coercion, major unfairness, duress, then a court might set them aside. But otherwise, it can, if you have a prenup or a postnup, it can and likely will have an effect on a divorce. Okay, so let's talk about some of the considerations for high asset divorce. So high net worth divorces bring like a whole nother layer of frosting, which is a very complex layer. Think business interests, stock options, trusts, multiple real estate properties, whether commercial or residential. Every piece of property, every asset must be identified, valued, and then divided. Hopefully you're going to do this process without a trial. So you're going to have to work either with your counsel and perhaps a forensic accountant, or you may work with your spouse in order to identify value and then figure out how to divide those assets. Forensic accountants can be retained to track down hidden income or to evaluate the true value of the complex assets, usually business assets, stock options, and they also will talk about tax consequences because they can be significant, and it makes the expert advice of a forensic accountant very valuable in a high asset or what's called a high net worth divorce. So when there's a lot at stake, there's a lot of assets and sometimes debt on the table, you definitely want to have proper valuation of the assets, and you also want to have a strategic plan. Don't try to settle things by saying, I'll keep the house, you keep the car, I'll keep the boat, you keep the helicopter. You want to make sure that things are valued correctly and identified so that you can make a decision whether to settle and how to settle with full information. You want to make sure that you're fully informed. All right, let's talk about bankruptcy and equitable distribution. So what happens if you or your spouse or both of you file for bankruptcy? Divorce courts and bankruptcy courts, one is in the circuit court, which is a local court, and one is considered a federal court. They can definitely intersect in ways that can delay or complicate the equitable distribution process. So in bankruptcy, some debts may be discharged while others are not. If there's a pending bankruptcy, the divorce court is typically, it's a family court, will typically have to wait until after bankruptcy is completed. So it causes the entire divorce to be on hold while one party or the other, or both, are going through bankruptcy. Keep in mind, child support and certain property settlements can't be bankrupted. So if you have a child support obligation and have gotten behind, or you have a retroactive amount that was applied to you, you cannot bankrupt out of that. So keep in mind also, you want to coordinate between the divorce attorneys or the family law attorneys and the bankruptcy attorneys. It's very important to keep that communication open to make sure that things are dealt with in a timely manner. So for this particular video, we'll have another session with video 4 where we're going to be able to talk about the role of mediation and some other things. But for this video number 3, we've covered several topics, including bankruptcy, including high asset or high net worth divorces, prenups and postnups and equitable distribution, the impact of alimony on equitable distribution, and we've talked about the marital home. So if you have questions, if you're in the state of Florida, I'm always happy to help, but stay tuned for the next segment where we'll keep talking about equitable distribution. Do you like my t-shirt? This is my Friday shirt. Nope, not today. So see you guys next time.